see a little bit better so that my back is not necessarily to you, you're welcome to do that. All right, so what we have up here, if you received the email or the press release, is the Let's Show Some Love, This Place Matters logo, which is an initiative that was kicked off by the National Trust for Historic Preservation, just to help bring awareness to institutions around the country that are on the National Register of Historic Places, places that are thriving, places that are in peril, but just a way for communities to remember that these places matter and that they have to be kept alive. I guess would be the way to put that. All right, so I guess the question that I've been asked is, why is State of the Liberty Address? And I've kind of got a three-part answer to that. And kairos is a word that comes from ancient Greece, and my background is in rhetoric and composition, so classical rhetoric is where this stems from, but it's a unique word because it means timing, not necessarily chronological like the clock or the month or the day of the week, but timing about the perfect moment or the perfect opportunity to say or do something. So just being able to identify the opportune moment for a thing. And I think that for the Liberty, this is the time for the community to have a better picture of what happens here. I mean, I know that people come to events or they hear something about the Liberty here or there, or when we do our Thanksgiving dinner, but to really get an inside look at the day-to-day operations of what happens here, I think that's really important. Transparency. Transparency is a tricky thing in the world we live in today, but I think that it's important, particularly for the Liberty, because there are a lot of questions that people have. There are a lot of legitimate questions that just have probably never been answered since the Liberty reopened in the 90s. So I just want to, let the community have a look inside and really get a better understanding of what we do well as what our challenges are. Clarity is important for everybody, but when thinking about this, the clarity portion for me was most important for our customers and our guests and our brides and our retirees and graduates and all the folks who come here for their special events and celebrations, so that they have a better understanding of why it is that they've transformed the space beautifully, but they come in and that eyesore is still out there in the lobby. Some days it looks a little better than others, and it depends on how hard it's rained, and it's fixed a whole lot of times, but we don't really know what the problem is. And why one particular day the ice maker might not be working, so we've got to give cash and go get the ice, or let folks know, hey, ice maker's not working today, but we're going to pay for your ice, and we'll go get it if you need us to. So those things are important for the people who, save their hard-earned money to come here for their special events. So I want them to, kind of understand some of the circumstances. All right, so I want to start out talking about the strengths and the things that we do well first, because I think that's also very important. And I won't spend too much time on the history because I think from looking around that most of you are pretty much familiar with it. That of course the doors opened in 1924, and it was an African-American theater, of course, on the Chitlin Circuit, home to performances by folks like Ma Rainey, Cab Calloway, Fletcher Henderson. And then after that, I guess in the 50s and 60s, it operated as a segregated movie theater. And this was where black children and black families could come and watch movies. And then there were other black-owned businesses along the street, restaurants, life insurance company, barbershop, and other things of that nature. The doors reopened with a full renovation and with this addition that you're in now around 1996. So it's been over 20 years since anything has happened to the facility. So, if you're a homeowner, you understand that after 20, 25 years, it doesn't matter how great it was when you bought it, it's 25 years old, and it's probably going to need a whole lot of something or to be replaced, more than likely. And the Liberty is a nonprofit performing arts organization. Excuse my typo right there. And so I prefer to kind of be a behind-the-scenes person because I feel like the work that I've been called to do with the Liberty is not really about me, but I also recognize that, a lot of people in the community see me at meetings or events and things like that. So this is just a little bit of background information about me. Most of my career has been spent teaching high school and then at the college level, English professor, at a couple of universities in the state, and then at Carver High School here in Columbus. And so I kind of tumbled into my work at the Liberty in 2013 while I was still a full-time faculty member, thinking that I was just coming on to do some temporary admin work around the office and help out the folks who were already here at that time. And it's about 6 years later and I'm still here. And I'm slowly figuring out the why to that. I haven't completely figured it out, but I think I'm getting there. A few of the awards and recognitions that I've received since being here. Most recently, I was recognized for commitment to the arts by the Rho Rho Omega chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha, along with Warren Williams, who's the band director over at Carver High School, and has just done an awesome job of transforming the band there. And then at the bottom, those are the boards that I sit on as a representative of the Liberty Building Toward Wellness Community Coalition, which is over at 4th Street, and the work we do is about darkness to light training and working with folks and training folks on how to prevent child sex trafficking and things of that nature. Coalition for Sound Growth, I'm the secretary on that executive board, a member of the Historic Columbus Foundation Board of Directors. I sit on the Liberty District Committee. I was Mayor Tomlinson's recommendation for that committee when she was in office, and then on the MLK Dream List Committee. So rentals are the lifeblood of the Liberty. They're what keep the doors open. They're the thing that just keep us going. We've got customers in and out every day who are making payments on their rentals, or coming to get a tour of the facility. And one of my favorite things is to see how they transform this room. It's always just an amazing transformation. So I put a few of the pictures up because I think it's just amazing to get a close look at the art that people come in and do for their, and I think this was a wedding for their special events. And I was reluctant to do this because I didn't want to leave anybody out, so if I did, I apologize in advance. But these are just a few of the organizations that we've partnered with or who help sponsor events. The Columbus Museum we've partnered with for a few years on the Fall Family Festival, and our costumer basically goes through and brings art in the gallery to life. So she finds people that resemble the art, costumes them the way the art is costumed, and then the folks at the museum hold a scavenger hunt, things like that, for the children to walk around and identify the pieces. So that's a fun project that we've done several times. Black Art in America has been an amazing sponsor and supporter for several years since Najee and Soteria came to town. We're always thankful for their ongoing support of the theater. AFLAC and TSIS have been donors or season sponsors for the last several years. Schwab School of Music, for several years we had a partnership with them that offered deeply discounted piano lessons to our community, and that was an exciting project that I hope we'll be able to bring back very soon. This is a picture from one of my favorite events, and it was the partnership with Uptown Columbus. So in 2017, I believe it was, they brought one of their First Friday concert series to the Liberty District per a suggestion from the city manager that came up from a conversation that he and Ross and I had, and it came together probably in a matter of maybe a couple of weeks that the Peggy Jenkins show was moved here, and it was just an amazing sight to see, I don't know, well over 2,500 people here partying and having a good time, and then there were food trucks and vendors, and it was a really great night. This is my other really, really favorite memory here at the Liberty that happened this past February, actually. The Reviving the Liberty Radiothon, which was an amazing day that we kicked off our membership program and raised, I don't know, I think about $6,000 to $8,000 from that event and the promotion leading up to that event. And the really amazing thing about that is that all of the radio partners in the city came together and collaborated for that event. iHeartMedia, Davis Broadcasting, and PNB Broadcasting all came together to contribute and promote that event. And they continue to be amazing community partners that we're really, really thankful for. Programs and events. Our newest program is the RLA Academy of Excellence that focuses on servant leadership, fine art, mentoring, and civic responsibility. And that program right now this year will be its third year, so it's still pretty new, but it's on site at Baker Middle School. And we're there Monday through Thursday from 4 to 7:30. And so yes, I'm there every day, and my assistant Carla, we finish our work here and we race over to Baker Middle School to hang out with our young men. We've got a few of them that are here with us for the summer. I don't know if they're around here somewhere. And so this has just been a phenomenal program. We're still figuring it out as we go and learning how to work with middle school boys, but seeing the transformation is amazing. And that program is made possible most recently through the crime prevention grant for this past year that funded it this past academic year. And the other pictures are just from some of the different events that we've had. This was our children's choir in its early stages. And then one of our other annual events that I also really enjoy is our Thanksgiving dinner. This year will be our 6th year for that. And I think over the 5 years that we've been doing that, I'm sure that we've served probably well over 2,000 people. People come here, and then we also deliver. We have volunteers who deliver to the Ralston Towers, Tent City, Stewart Community Homes, and a bunch of other organizations or facilities around the city, and then individuals who aren't able to get out but would like the meal also call, and we have something delivered to them as well. So that's a really fun event. And then lastly, this is a picture from our production of Langston Hughes Black Nativity. And this particular, this was the last year that we were able to do the show. This was December of 2016, as we were preparing to do this show over in the theater, and had to move it pretty much about 3 to 4 days before the show opened, because the stage was soaked, set was getting soaked, areas throughout the theater were wet due to heavy rain, and the lighting in the electrical system was also shorting out as a result of that. So through Black Art in America and some amazing donors, we were able to move the show over to Carver High School. They opened their doors to us, and we were able to do that. And again, that was the last production that we had in the theater, which was December of 2016. And so before I switch gears, I just wanted to also give a couple of snippets, because many of you may have not been to a production here at the theater. So just a couple of snippets. One is a rehearsal snippet, and the cast typically rehearses over here until a week or two before the show, just because it's easier, and at that time the HVAC and some other things were a little bit unpredictable. so that was from our final production in 2016. That was over at Carver High School. Hopefully soon we'll be able to get back to our annual production of the Langston Hughes Black Nativity. What you see here are just a few of the flyers from some of the programming that has happened here in the last 4 to 5 years. Dearly Departed, Amen Corner, Black Nativity are all productions that happened over in the theater side. Each semester we had a music recital for our children who were in the choir who participated in the piano program. There's a flyer from last year's Thanksgiving dinner. Showtime at the Liberty was an ongoing fundraiser that we did for maybe about a year or so. The Food Truck Fridays that took place last summer, and then an art jam that we did a while back in partnership with Black Art in America and some other Davis Broadcasting and Crayons Crafts, the Cool Kids, a couple years back. That was an awesome program. All right, so now let's kind of switch gears a little bit and talk about the challenges. But I thought it important before we just got into the challenges and the things that might be problematic here that you all also get an understanding of what we do well and what most of our day-to-day work looks like. So this picture right here is from the area out in the lobby to your right where the banner from Najee Dorsey hangs. And this was an important picture. This might have been maybe 2013 or 2014 because I think it's important for folks to see that, you know, I think sometimes our customers particularly walk in and say, well, why is that there? Why don't they fix that? And, you know, at this point, I think we've concluded that it might have been some sort of structural problem that happened when the facility was built. I don't know, but everything possible has been done, as you can see here, to fix it. And that's what it looked like most recently, the last time I had it fixed, or we had it fixed, so you can, you know, compare that picture to what's happening in the lobby now and see what happens. And then the other part of that that's also a challenge is we have an amazing handyman, Mr. Jordan, who comes in probably weekly. If it's a heavy rain, he comes in and probably replaces 14 to 16 ceiling tiles throughout the lobby in the banquet room after heavy rains. And we've been fortunate in that when a group of bus drivers from Muskogee County Transportation came on Martin Luther King Day to do some volunteer work, they cleaned out a shed in the back that had probably not been cleaned out in about 10 years and found maybe 30 cases of ceiling tiles that we usually purchase for about $30, $40 a case. So I don't know, that was an amazing blessing that's been helping us. It's kind of a weird blessing, but it's been, you know, helping us save a little bit there. This is just a glimpse at some of the water damage that's in the theater. This is just a full picture of the theater. Again, a large portion of the challenge is just that, you know, nothing has happened since 1996. So that's been, you know, well over 20 years. There's basically at this point no lighting system. There's a little bit left of it, but the theater at this point would need a completely new electrical system and lighting system. There is not a sound system. There has not been a sound system since I got here. Perhaps there was one at some point before, I'm not sure. So even for shows, we would bring in a sound person or a DJ who had the capabilities to provide sound and mics and things like that for shows. Again, just another close-up picture down from that corner where a little bit of the ongoing water damage happens. It's also across the stage and at other places throughout, as you can see. That's a picture from the ceiling. All right, so revenue. As I mentioned, rentals are pretty much the primary revenue stream for the Liberty, aside from, you know, occasional sponsorships and donations that are typically, in most cases, earmarked for something, so they don't really factor very much into the day-to-day operating costs. But I did go back and do a count from our calendars and the information we keep here. So from 2013 to 2019, there were over 260 rentals of birthday parties, retirement ceremonies, repasts, special occasions like that. About 30 plus weddings and wedding receptions. And then up until 2016, about 40 theater rentals. And so these totals also include the in-house events we had, which were minimal in comparison to the rentals. So basically, when you do the math on that, that comes out to an average of about 55 events per year. Our rental rate is pretty standard for Friday through Sunday. It's $800 and a refundable deposit of $150. Because the other thing is that it's important that we provide a great venue, but that it's also affordable for the community that we serve. So if you do the math on that, then that's about $265,000 over a 6-year period, which is, not a lot. And then if you take that a step further, that's roughly $44,000 a year after you deduct any events we do in-house and in-kind space that we might donate. We're not able to donate space quite as much as we'd like, obviously, because donating space then costs us on this side, and not a lot, but in the big scheme of things for us, it's a lot right now, though it probably should not be. And so if we had facility upgrades or renovations, really, and the operating funds that were needed, then we could potentially book 3 times the 55 events per year, which would then bring the revenue to an average of $132,000 per year, which is still not necessarily how I think the operating cost should work, but it's definitely an increase from $44,000 that would allow more money for reserves and for repairs and the things that happen even in a completely upgraded facility. It's a 20+ thousand square foot facility, so things will happen that will need to be fixed or repaired or replaced, things like that. All right, so staff. Right now, I serve as the executive director. I have an executive assistant. We give, it just depends on what we've got going on that week, anywhere from 35 to 60+ hours a week. Not necessarily Monday through Friday from 9 to 5. Yesterday, I think we were probably here from 11 to 11. It just varies depending on what the needs of the customers are, because the customers we serve primarily for rentals aren't always able to come during a 9 to 5 work day, so it might be 7, 8 sometimes that they might need to come. We operate, I would say, upwards of 60, maybe even a little bit more than that, in largely a volunteer capacity. So what that means when I say that is there's not necessarily a set salary or a paycheck that we can say that we get every 2 weeks. It just kind of depends on what's available and what has to be paid. And unfortunately, insurance and the things that have to happen to make sure the facility is up to par so we can get it for rentals has to happen first. And so that's another thing that can't continue the way it's been going. It just can't. And then the other problem with that is that as a result of trying to figure out day-to-day things like scheduling Mr. Jordan to come and put ceiling tiles and tracking down our air-conditioned people and all those things, it takes away from the work that we should really be doing with regards to programming and grant writing and figuring out other ways to serve the community. In addition, we do have security officers and janitors who do get paid an hourly rate each time they work, so they have a little bit more consistent guarantee than the 2 of us who are here every day, because we have to, obviously make sure they get paid to come in and do the work that they do. Ideally, a full-time executive director, executive assistant, and artistic director are the core staff that we would need right now to be successful. Obviously, there's space for a lot of other positions, education coordinator, things like that. But if we just had those 3 to start, that would be amazing and really allow us to focus on the work that we want to do. So I don't know if you can see this, but I have copies of it if you need it. What I've kept is a running list of upgrades and repairs throughout the facility, and we've had folks ask for it from time to time so that we have it on hand. And if something happens, we just add to it. So as you can see, it's kind of broken out by general things that the entire facility needs, that the lobby needs. There's office area and conference room in the back. The annex, which is this space that you're in now, and our kitchen, sound booth, the theater lobby, the theater. So again, if you want to take a closer look at this, you definitely can later. But it's a 3-page list. It's a pretty detailed list of things that I can walk around and show you that genuinely need to be probably not repaired but replaced. So, all right, so there are a few solutions for the problem. Obviously, guaranteed funds for operations would be a starting point for us. A point that I know is a little bit tricky around town, but that it definitely is something that we here at the Liberty think about often, because we can see what not being a part of that conversation, some of the challenges that it has caused. There is a hotel motel tax here in the city of what I think is at 8 cents right now. And so that means that there are a few organizations who do receive a portion of that. Those would be the Civic Center, the Trade Center, the River Center, the Convention and Visitors Bureau, and the Sports Council. And so on an average year, maybe a penny from that, for an organization that receives a penny, that would be $600,000. So if the Liberty were receiving a penny or even a half of a penny, then that would alleviate a lot of the problems that we have. $600,000 is more than our operating budget, so that would pay staff, that would get repairs done, that would pay utility bills without having to make choices about what we're going to pay, how much we're going to pay, and who we're going to pay, and having those conversations, and allow us to do the things that we have to keep up the code from the fire department, and just all the things that are day-to-day operations that need to happen. Grants that we've either received before or that are currently in progress, again, for this year, are listed there. The Ford Foundation grant we got several years ago, and it made it possible to put new carpet in this room and new paint. We still painted over wallpaper, so it's really time for all that to come down. Roof work sensors needed to be done here. HVAC systems need to be replaced. We obviously need projectors and sound and things like that mounted in the proper places. Just because it's 2019, and those are the things that most facilities have, and that the Liberty also deserves to have, and to have in working condition. And so before I open the floor for questions, I put up a few of the questions that I personally get asked a lot that I wanted to take some time out to answer. One of the biggest ones that well-intentioned folks who come here to visit or check on dates and things like that often ask is, well, y'all have a lot of rentals. There's something going on every time I pass by here. Why don't the rentals do it? Why isn't that enough? And so the best analogy that I've come up with for talking about the rentals in regards to this facility is, let's think about TJ Maxx, right? TJ Maxx is a huge operation with a lot of different moving parts, a lot of staff, inventory, all of that. So let's narrow it down and think about their layaway department. Their layaway department functions a lot of different ways. You got to make a minimum $10 deposit, and you can leave it and pay it out over 30 days. Or some folks go and they say, well, I'm going to pay a little extra, let me pay $25 and I'll be back. And so then some of those folks never come back. They just say, it's only $10, don't worry about it. Some of them come back and they get some of it and leave the rest. Some of them come back and they get all of it and they take it home and keep it. Some of them come back and they get it all out and take it to the front and return it. You know what I mean? So you never know what's going to happen. And that's a similar concept with rentals. When folks want to hold their date, they come in and they pay their $150 security deposit, which they do lose if they cancel an event. If the event happens and they leave the facility as they're supposed to, then they get it back. But the $800 might, even with the revenue numbers you saw earlier, that $800 can come in over the course of 12 to 18 months. So, because it has to be paid 60 days before the date of the event. So if somebody comes in today to book for a June wedding, that means it doesn't have to be paid in full until 60 days before June 2020. So we never really know, how they're gonna, it might be $50 here, it might be a $200 payment. We might get to the 60-day window and they say, hey, Ms. Carla, I know what the contract says, but I had an emergency come up, so can I have another 15 to 30 days? And what are we gonna say? So That's my best answer to why the rentals aren't sufficient. Why don't people help this place? Are black folks helping y'all? Black people ain't doing enough for the Liberty. What's going on? Where are the black people? And my answer to that question is, first of all, the Liberty belongs to the entire community, first and foremost. But the more specific answer to that question is the black community specifically is doing what they're supposed to do. When we have shows, they buy tickets. When we need volunteers, we have volunteers from all races and all walks of life that show up when we put out a call for volunteers. Sometimes at Thanksgiving we have 100, 150 volunteers, more folks that are actually on site to eat, which just helps with deliveries. They buy memberships. When we need favors for things around the facility or things that can't happen, they come in. Of course, all of our media partners are amazing. So to answer that question, yes. People are helping to the best of their ability in the ways they can. And I don't think it's the responsibility necessarily of the black community or any specific community or group to keep the doors of the facility open and fund day-to-day operations. It's just not. So, you don't necessarily go to the River Center and say, are white folks keeping it open? Not to be, it's just a real thing, and it couldn't happen. They couldn't stay open. Most venues across the country probably couldn't stay open without some other revenue streams besides just rentals, some endowments or donations or something keeps them going. So I guess my answer to that is it belongs to the community. Most of the community helps in amazing ways. They go above and beyond, actually, so I don't want to suggest that, but I think that's also what led me to this event today. Is I don't think people had a complete understanding of what the day-to-day operations really, really look like here. And again, it's easy to see how busy we are with events every weekend. So if we have a Friday, Saturday event, every, for the month of June, that's a $5,000 month, roughly. But that's $5,000, again, that's coming in over 12 to 18 months. It's not all coming in on one. And it's over 12 to 18 months, and we don't know what day. You know what I mean? It's as specific as, a customer calls that morning and saying, hey, y'all gonna be there at 7, can I come by when I get off work and make a payment? And that's fine, and the payment might be $150 or $200, which is fine. That's how we like it, that's how we want it to be, because it matches the needs of the community we serve. But it also should not be the money that we have to depend on to determine if a bill is gonna get paid, or if salaries and things like that are gonna get paid. Another question that I get asked a lot, aren't there enough stages in Columbus anyway? There's this stage, and CSU has a stage, and Springer has a stage, and there are enough stages anyway, so. And valid question, again, definitely a valid question. I won't say that it's not, because there are several stages in Columbus, but I think the beauty of it is, firstly, Columbus is an amazing town as far as the arts are concerned. You can hear live music several nights a week. Broadway is amazing. All of the venues here have amazing shows and productions and events happening. And so I think they all serve a need. They all have their place in the community for the entire community, not just any one specific group. But my answer to that, where the Liberty is concerned, is that, firstly, the Liberty is one of only 3 historically African-American theaters in the state of Georgia. The Liberty is the only one that's still operating most fully as an African-American theater. Obviously serving the whole community, but keeping the foundation of being a historic African-American theater. And in addition, when we're doing productions and shows, and when I first started, we were maybe doing 3 to 5 a year, pretty much on a shoestring, but amazing shows. But the beauty of those shows is that all of the talent is local. Our artistic director, music director, all of those folks are local. Most recently, our team of young men were recent graduates from Albany State who did a beautiful job writing shows, producing shows. They were able to have full access to the building. I said, hey y'all, I gotta go, I can't be here all night with y'all. I give them a key, let me know what you need. We don't have a lot, but we can accommodate, can't pay you what you're worth, but we can give you an honorarium that hopefully will, match your time. And those young men were so amazing. Several of them went on to be in, Dream Girls over at the Springer, Newsies, several other shows. One has now gone on to be a theater professor at Albany State. Another one has gone on to be a theater and choir director at a middle school. I wanted to keep him, but we didn't have funds for an artistic director, so he held on as long as he could. And again, anybody who comes through the door when we're doing auditions, they get a part. Like, they don't have to, we ask that they bring a resume or headshot maybe, but they get a part, even if it's a small part. If it's a child, no matter who, they get a part in the show. So those are just a few of the things that make this particular stage unique. Lastly, is it family owned? No, it is not. It's governed by the board of directors. I think what has happened over the years is the Liberty is all consuming, so I think families find themselves here. That was to some extent the case with the previous amazing director who was before me. I've definitely gotten that question since I've been here. And the way that worked is that, I was away from Columbus for a very long time, and when I came back to the area, my father was currently serving as board chairman, and it was around that time in 2013 that there was a transition kind of about to happen with day-to-day operations, and they need somebody to come in temporarily and help, and he called me and said, hey, I need you to come out and help with some stuff in the office. And I said, no, I don't have time for that. I'm working, and no, and no, and no. No, I don't know anything about theater, not a theater person, I don't want to, and here I am. So it is not family owned. He has since moved over to emeritus status now, so he's not the active chair, but obviously he was here and played an integral role in the renovation and expansion that happened in 1996. So like most of us who step into the Liberty, you fall in love with it, and obviously you want to see it do what it's supposed to do. So that is the end of my presentation. Thank you all for staying with me through that. So now if any of you have questions, I'll be happy to take questions.
Yes. How many board members do you have?
Right now, 6. Mm-hmm. Ideally, we want it to be somewhere between 16 and 20. Okay. 21. Somewhere around that. Okay. Yes.
So outside of grants, is there another way that the Liberty and the rentals, is there another way or avenue that money can be raised to?
My first response would be a penny or two from the hotel motel tax, because it serves other organizations. If you want to look really specifically at it, a lot of events happen that serve the Black community, that utilize the hotels here, the sorority and fraternity conventions. There's a state conference coming up for the Omegas. You have the Fountain City Classic, Tuskegee Morehouse, which, I don't necessarily want to get wrapped up in breaking it down that specifically, but it should serve, I think it should serve the Liberty as well. I was not here when that happened, so I don't know the backstory on that, let me just say that. But just sitting where I sit right now, the only thing I know is, hey, there's 8 cents out here, and several other organizations get it. I don't know what the formula is or was for determining that, but I know that if the Liberty had, $500,000 a year, that would solve a large part of our challenges and would really allow us the time and things that we need to write grants and do the things we need to do to get the other funding that we really don't have time to focus on right now.
So my next part of that question is, can the Liberty have an event to raise funds like just throwing it out here, sometimes we just participated in a marathon and raised money to give money to a shelter for women?
I mean, of course, we can. The membership drive does that. And on the scale we'd like for that to be on, that would help significantly with operating costs each year. But I think in terms of what the Liberty needs right now, where you're talking about 25 years of repairs and renovations, it's probably bigger than just one single fundraising event. So it's probably, A modest estimate would be 2 to 3 million for a full-scale renovation. If you're talking about expansions and other things, probably 5 to 7 to really, kick the Liberty District off and give the Liberty what it deserves as a historic theater, as a historic African American theater. So I think it's much bigger than just one fundraising event, unfortunately, at this point. Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to know, is Representative State, Representative Calvin's Henry, is he still on the board?
Yes, he's serving as board chairman right now.
Okay, and also is he on the board of the Representative Performing Arts too? Do you know?
Not that I know of, I'm not sure. I don't think so.
It help them raise a lot of funds like the bill that's
Right.
So I just not to concentrate on one individual, but I'm just saying connections and whatnot, and all of that.
Right, yes, sir. Understand. Yes.
Have you got an estimate on what it would take to fix the roof?
Our most recent estimates as of a few weeks ago estimated to complete, we've got lots of estimates on various levels of repairs because, folks come in and they give them and we still have to say, no, we need an estimate to take the whole thing off. So for both sides of the facility, upwards of $200,000, and what that does not include is that the theater side would completely have to be reframed, and it would have to be reframed because there's wood under there that serves as the catwalk for when folks go up to do lighting and things like that. So all of that would have to come out as well because I'm sure it's soaked at this point. So, yes.
I probably ought not to be asking questions since I'm involved in it, but I've been thinking, sitting here, you were talking about that penny, but we had a SPLOS a few years back for the Liberty District, was included in it, like $5 million. And a lot of it has been spent acquiring land and all around it. The city now owns quite a bit, and they were buying it up to kind of renovate or revitalize this area. I understand there's close to $2 million still left in that pot. And, but it's structured for infrastructure. And my question is, if the Liberty Theater is not the linchpin or the infrastructure need for this area to get this area going, why can't we spend some of that money on that? I don't know whether you've looked into that or not.
That's a fabulous question. I don't yet have the answer to that, but it is in progress. So, but yeah, good question. Because part of the role of the Liberty District Committee is to figure out how to get businesses and developers to start building down here. And the city has done some an amazing job of laying the groundwork for that to happen. And so just figuring out how to get the activity going and help folks see that, like one of the things that Ross at Uptown always talks about that I think is amazing is that, to see Phoenix City, which is more rapidly becoming an extension of Uptown than the Liberty District is, but to see you to be able to go from Phoenix City on a Friday night to drinks at Uptown to an event in the Liberty District to, going home or winding down in Midtown would be an amazing thing. So the Liberty District is where the gap exists, and to figure out how to make that also be, a multicultural, diverse hub of the community would be an amazing thing. And I think that starts with working on the Liberty and getting it to where it deserves to be, and then making it attractive for other businesses. And like I said, the city has put some great incentives in place and done some great groundwork on getting that process started. Right here, and then Ms. Rashida. Yes.
Couple of things. You really need to find out what it would take to get part of that fixing tax money. Have you considered there are restoration tax credits, and it's a process to apply for it. But when you get it, they take care of probably more than half of the expense.
Mm-hmm.
So I would recommend that you look into federal and state restoration tax credits, part of this plan. And the other thing, as far as our community is concerned, I saw you had Networking for Good on your screen there. Are they working, are you working with them now?
That's one of the ones that we're applying for this month. That's not one we've previously applied for, but
They
we are.
help manage donors, and they have, software to help do that.
And I believe that's what that grant is for. It's not a huge grant, but it does help with donor management systems. So.
And I'm gonna just say, and I don't know whether you have a list of community people who have committed to donating to the Liberty, every year. But I've been sitting here, I talked to my wife about it, and, we would afford to, maybe donate $100 a year to the Liberty. And if you start on get that started, and then networking is good to help you manage those donors.
Okay.
Then, that's a steady flow of it.
Right. Yes, sir. Thank you. And we do have the membership program going, so you could definitely take some information or sign up for that today if you'd like to. And that would be amazing to know that there's $100 that we can count on every year. So if that happens times whatever, we know that's an income source that we can count on, even if it's $20 that we can count on every month or even every year. Then it gives us a clearer picture of what the numbers would be.
What's your membership?
I'm sorry.
How much is the annual?
For the individual levels, they're from 25 up to 5,000, and then there's a corporate side as well. Ms. Rashida?
Thank you, Shay.
Mhm.
Great presentation, by the way.
Thank you.
I have so many questions. One, a really good faith-based grant writer from where I'm sitting is what we need. Someone who can write a grant asking for millions, not thousands, but we need millions. And I just think that that's a person that someone in this room may know. And that person needs to be addressed and asked to help save this district, this part of the Liberty District. I've always said my dream for the Liberty is the cultural center itself, is to take up this whole block, not just this building, but it's the Liberty Theater Cultural Center.
Right.
And the whole block. So my next question, the rest of the land around the Liberty, who owns that?
Okay. Well, first, let me go back to your first point.
Faith-based grant.
Yes. So the Liberty is not a faith-based organization, though clearly God is what keeps us here at the Liberty Theater. Let me just say that. But we don't operate as a faith-based organization, which would make it a little bit more challenging if we did for grants. But yes, support with grant writing would be amazing. All of it that happens right now, I do myself. And as mentioned in the presentation, I'm not a grant writer. I'm an English person, but grant writing is a little bit more of a specific thing than just being a writer. So support with that would be great. But even you have to remember that we're 35 to 60 hours a week, largely in a volunteer capacity, and holding it together around the facility for day to day takes up most of that. So figuring out things like that is definitely something we need help with, firstly. And then the land around here, a lot of it belongs to the city. And a part of what the city has done is to purchase that so that when folks are interested in coming here to build and do things, then they can make those transactions happen. So it has been done with the intent of redeveloping the Liberty District.
All right, you also said that we are a historic theater in one of 3 or 4 in the state of Georgia.
African American, yes.
Okay, are we on the historical register for historic places?
The theater side of the facility is on the National Register of Historic Places, yes.
Okay. And what does it take to have an historical marker placed out in front of the building?
That can be done. There was one here when I first got here. Not sure what happened to it, but it is on our to-do list to find out what we need to do to get another marker put out there, yes ma'am. So we'll keep you informed of that.
And where do we stand with the brick project?
The brick project is on pause. We were just talking about that not long ago, hoping to bring that back. But when we do, because we do have quite a few folks who purchased bricks when we were, at the peak of that project. But where we stand right now is in order to bring it back, I want to be able to have a clearer picture of when we can actually install the bricks, and make the rest of that project happen. Cause I know that the 20 or 25 folks who got them already are still waiting. So we don't wanna, bring that back just yet, hopefully before the year is out. But like I said, I wanna be able to have a clearer sense of when we can actually install them and complete the next phase of that project. But it is still very much on the radar, yes ma'am.
And my last thing I'd like to just throw out here, it was a huge event when the city, Uptown Friday Night Concert Series brought Peggy out.
Mhm.
I would think that the Liberty needs to do something like that once a quarter.
I agree.
Every 3 months, or 3 times a year maybe. Back to school, the wintertime may not be so good for outdoors, but there's time during the spring and summer months and the early fall that that we can do something to generate the revenue. I mean, it's only a block, and you can block it off and have it as they do the River Fest, where you have to actually pay to get in and bring in an act or do whatever we can do. To me, that 3 times a year may be some generating, a way to generate some major funds.
Right.
Because the people showed up that day.
They did. It was a free event,
Right.
and so it was still beautiful to see the people here. And I think there were sponsors on Uptown side that made that event possible. But even, and we weren't ready at that time with the membership program, but even if we had been able to take advantage of the crowd for our membership program, that would have been amazing. Again, that's something that's definitely on our radar. We've been having some conversations about bringing some events like that back to the Liberty District, and one of the grants on the list also is specifically for outdoor events. So hopefully that will also help to offset some of the costs that come with that. Yes.
Can you explain what happened at that, how that came about, us having the outdoor event out here and the cost that it was to us?
Oh, yeah. For that event, it came about as a result of a conversation between the city manager, myself, and Ross at Uptown Columbus, and he thought that the city manager thought it might be a good idea to see how an event of that kind might happen in the Liberty District, and Ross and his team thought it was a great idea, and their Peggy Jenkins concert also coincided with Ma Rainey's birthday that weekend, so it was just a great time for a celebration. So again, we pretty much provided the venue for that and helped with organizing on the vendor side, but everything else for that event was sponsored by Uptown and their sponsors, Active Pest Control in Columbus State and some other organizations. So there wasn't necessarily an out-of-cost expense to us aside from, opening the building and that sort of thing. Ms. Tonza, and then.
First, I want to say thank you because in 2010 or 2011, I was one of those actresses in Shaking the Mess Out of Misery as Miss Shine here in Liberty. So as I've been out in this community working with youth, I know that they love poetry slam. I know that they love doing hip hop, dance, or some sorts of arts and crafts. Is there a way that you can come up with these programs and, like she and another lady said, do an entry fee and let that money and those revenues come in to help the Liberty Theater? Because the Liberty is a jewel in this community, and we should always support it. Even though there are so many things that are going on, we gotta take care of our own.
Right.
And so our children who we have, who are at risk, they need to be in the Liberty Theater doing something productive.
That's a great question, Ms. Tonza, and the first part of my response to that I think a lot of people don't know is over on the theater side. It's a 295-seat theater, which is not huge, but it's a historic theater, so for 1924, that was huge. But behind the theater is a workshop that's probably bigger than the theater. There's also a full dance studio with mirrors, bars, all of that. There are 4 complete dressing rooms, and each dressing room has a full working bathroom, as in a sink, a toilet, and a shower. However, there's no HVAC system in the dance studio or in the dressing room area. Again, I don't know the full picture of that, but we do now have quotes and an idea of what it would take to get that fixed. So right now, or when productions were happening, pretty much whatever it felt like outside is what it felt like in the dressing room area. In the dance studio, people still call about it, but it's just, in my opinion, best not to rent that out right now. And And in terms of the programs, yes, we could charge a minimal entry fee. In my personal opinion, the programs that we offer, for the most part, particularly for children, should be as close to free as possible, ideally. But with programs, if we did charge a fee, I don't necessarily know that it would go to operating costs. It would essentially go back into the program for paying for supplies and program staff and things like that. So definitely something we want to do more of, just like the program we do at Baker, and we take that on site because it's more convenient, and a school bus comes and picks them up from there. But definitely something we want to do more of, but whatever fees we charge wouldn't necessarily contribute to operating costs. And if they did, it wouldn't be, a significant amount. Yes.
Question, is, if the theater was cleaned up, is it usable to do fundraisers? Say we wanted to put on the show and then all the money raised went to the DVD. Is it usable?
You can walk around in it, but usable for an event, I'm gonna have to say no, because there are significant, at this point, holes in the ceiling and missing ceiling tiles. The HVAC system is pretty much done at this point, so unfortunately, no. As much as I would like to, and I think it would be great to kind of see it as is, but yes.
Let's have a crap game. The lottery, everybody playing the lottery. We can send the police chief out of town, get the city manager to leave and everything, and then have some black police down here to guard and have a crap game.
Oh.
No, I'm just teasing.
Okay.
No, but are you all open to having a name like the Amazon Liberty Center or the Georgia Power Liberty Center or something? Could you all be selling naming rights to raise some money?
I don't know. It depends on what comes with that, what the details are.
It's just a matter of them writing you a check and they put their name out there with it.
If that's all that's involved, possibly, but maybe. My only concern would, be to make sure that it stays what it is. Everybody who's here now is no longer here. It needs to continue to be one of only 3 historic African American theaters that still operates as an African American theater. So when my 13-year-old is 40 or 50, it needs to still serve the purpose that it serves now. So that would be my primary concern. If that were guaranteed, then I don't have an issue with that. Other questions? No? All right, well, thank you. Definitely, if you think of something else, feel free to let me know. If you want to take a closer look at something or have questions about something on the presentation, let me know that as well. And thank you all for coming. I appreciate it.